It's time to go over the next update for Sacred Forest, my open-world, action-adventure game where you play as a bow-wielding heroine set within a diverse forestscape. You can glide with your cape, swing with grapple arrows, and even slow time to battle the blight-infected monsters in order to bring balance to the forest. It's developed in Godot 4, and you can even wishlist it on Steam right now. I'll leave a link down below. There's some pretty exciting stuff that's been added to the game, like new movement mechanics to the character, new areas in the game, and some really cool features that help me build out the world of Sacred Forest. Let's start off with some of the smaller updates that are probably more difficult to notice, but are definitely important. First off, I updated to the newest version of the Terrrain3D Plugin for Godot, which is the plugin I use to build out the underlying terrain for the entire world of Sacred Forest. I just wanted to mention this because there's some really cool new features that might be interesting for anyone who's developing a game in Godot. Probably the coolest new feature is the Foliage Instancer, which lets you add mesh objects like grass or bushes or whatever you want and allows you to paint them down on your terrain. This is great for people who don't want to have to mix and match plugins just to get the ability to create a terrain with grass or trees in Godot. Godot doesn't have a built-in way to make terrain or really handle mesh placement in an easy way, so it relies on external plugins like Terrrain3D to fill that use case. Now, I probably won't use this feature since I'm using the Spatial Gardener plugin for placing down all my foliage, but I think it's important that people know this functionality exists and it's getting better as the plugin is developed. Speaking of foliage, there has actually been a visual bug in Sacred Forest for quite some time, and you've probably noticed it in previous devlogs. Essentially, as I moved the camera around in the world, it was really easy to notice that there were rectangular grass patches of different colors appearing, and it really stuck out and it didn't look very good. This was related to having multiple level of detail meshes for the grass, so as you get closer to the grass, it gets more detailed. I finally figured out what the problem was, which was because I have a grass swaying shader applied to the two most detailed levels for the grass. But I didn't want the lowest level of detail to use the sway shader because it takes a performance hit, and you wouldn't even see the sway if you were far away. I ended up just adding an option to the shader to be able to bypass the sway code, but still apply colors the same way, since it's hard to match the colors by just using a built-in spatial material like I was previously doing. Anyway, I'm happy with the result, and the main takeaway is that the game just looks a lot better now. Alright, on to the new character movement mechanics. Up until now, the main character has been able to run around, do regular jumps, glide with her cape, and even swing around the level with grapple arrows, which is pretty fun on its own, but more is better. Since my main goal right now is to create a demo for the game, I really need to nail down all of the basic mechanics for the main character. I want to have some sort of tutorial for the demo, and it would be much better to have all the movement mechanics implemented first so I don't have to keep going back and changing the tutorial as I add new features. In order to have a fun combat system, I feel like it's really important to have some kind of dodge mechanism. There's various ways to do this, and a lot of games implement a roll mechanic or some type of side hop to get out of the way. I kinda felt like the side hop made more sense for wielding a bow, because it would allow you to quickly jump out of the way and use the slow-mo mechanic to shoot enemies that just missed an attack. The other new mechanic is wall running. Was this a necessary feature? I don't know. It might be redundant because you can already swing around with grapple arrows, but I just thought it would add to the fun factor. I've definitely had a lot of fun playing with it while testing out the new feature, and it works really well with the new side hop mechanic because it lets me jump from wall to wall. While I was developing this feature, I just had it in mind that it'd be totally awesome to use this while fighting huge monsters, and even potentially if there were giant monsters that you could use this feature to run up their huge arms and get close to their head to deliver a final blow, freeing themselves from this mortal plane.
I am mad scientist. It's so cool. Son of a bitch.
Or something along those lines. Let me know what you think of the new mechanics in the comments down below. if you don't like them, or if you do like them, or if you wish you saw some changes. So yeah, the new mechanics are pretty exciting. And you know what else is pretty exciting? The new automated CI/CD pipeline for Sacred Forest. Alright, maybe that's not quite as exciting, but it's extremely important. So what does it do? Well, I use Git as my version control system for Sacred Forest, which keeps track of all the changes I ever make, so if I mess something up, I can easily revert those changes. I also use GitLab to back up everything to the cloud in case my computer blows up. So what the pipeline does is that when I send my code changes to GitLab, it builds a new version of the game and automatically uploads that version to Steamworks, so it's ready for me to deploy at any time I want. A lot of people choose to just manually upload zip files to Steam when they want to update their game, and that's totally fine, but it's definitely a lot more stressful once the game is released, because it's really easy to accidentally mess something up, which causes the game to not work, and then you get a bunch of community posts about how your game is broken and potentially even some bad reviews for the game. So setting up the automated build and deploy system is something I've done for all my games except for the first one, which my experience with the first one is exactly why I make sure to always do this for every game I make, because my first release was definitely pretty stressful. Okay, back to the game. In one of the previous devlogs, I mentioned that I made an interaction system that also uses the conditional flag system, which lets you run around and interact with the world, like opening doors, talking to NPCs, or picking up items. Well, I've since added an auto trigger feature to that system, which is extremely useful for automatically triggering things within the game. One small use case for that system is the ability to trigger zone names for when you enter places you've never seen before. Here's an example. When I walk into the town near the beginning of the game, it auto-triggers an interaction that displays the name on the screen. The look of this isn't finalized, but I still wanted to show it off. I think it's kinda cool to add these around the world, like entering this little temple. Once it has shown you the name, it'll never show it to you again, because it uses the flag system to save everything. One of the biggest use cases for the auto-interact system is to trigger cutscenes, like this one. With the new cutscene system in place, I can easily make new cutscenes and use the interaction system to trigger them when the player reaches certain parts of the game. I really feel like this is a huge step forward because cutscenes add a ton of immersion to the game when trying to convey important plot points in the story. Oh yeah, and now you've seen this big old lady. I don't want to spoil story related stuff in these devlogs, but this character occurs near the beginning of the game, and I thought it'd be cool to show how it's constructed because it has some cool features. You might notice that this character has some depth to it, kind of like it's 3D, and the head actually follows where the player camera is, which I think adds a cool effect. Well, this character is actually made of a bunch of different layers tied together to give a parallax effect. This NPC exists in the first little village area, inside the new little temple. This is mostly just mocked up, so there's still a lot of polish work to really bring things together, but I think it looks pretty cool so far. Alright, aside from tons of small fixes and changes, these are the big updates to Sacred Forest that I've done over the past few weeks. Have you been working on anything? It could be a game, or new music, or something that you've been building. Feel free to share it down below. Sacred Forest has been extremely fulfilling so far to work on, and I've always felt like having some type of project or goal to work towards keeps me motivated to always try to grow. So if you don't have a goal or a project or something that you're working towards, I challenge you to start thinking of something and get to it. Anyway, you can join the Sacred Forest Discord and check out the Steam page. Or not. Until next time.